Welcome to video number 2 in our series of pop-ups, and I use that in quotes because that's what I think I called it in the first video, but really, this is kind of the word that just caught on in the area. Pop-up is a local event where we're hosting a booth or maybe a pop-up canopy if it's outside. We've done some at a night market, for example, at a cafe. We have one coming up at a mall. We have one coming up at a convention, but it's getting out there in the local community and sharing BGE's tabletop. So in this video, we're going to go over 2 or 3 specific pop-ups and share some data from that. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to share some specific insights and tips and things I've learned from doing these things, and hopefully they can help you as well. All right, so let's get into these numbers. So the first thing, that top one, I went over in the video last time. So if you go to our playlist in this video series, you'll notice this is the first video. I talk about this one, and we'll kind of use this to compare a little bit between the next 3 we did. And I say 3, but it's really kind of 2 because one on 8/7 and 8/8 were the same place and the same weekend. So I'm going to kind of group that together. The experience was very much the same. And then we had one on 8/14 the following weekend. So the first one was at a cafe. We've been to this cafe a few times, or at least twice before. And we actually had an event there on 8/1/8/2, and that is finished as of this recording, and I'm going to talk about that and compare it to 8/28, which we are coming up to this weekend. So we'll have our next video when we talk about those 2. But if you notice these events, so we have on Saturday, we had 4 hours and 5 hours. That's how long we're open for our event, not necessarily how much work we put into it. We probably spend an hour and a half setting up and breaking down. And then depending on what I want to do to prepare for the event, whether that's getting more inventory ready, thinking about how to have some more fun at the booth or events, we could spend a little bit more time there too. The next data point is unique passersby. So these are people that walk past our booth. That doesn't mean they stop at our booth. It doesn't mean they stop for a second and look at a game. It doesn't mean they say hi. So these are all things that count as booth visits. So if they kind of stop for a moment, kind of look at our booth, engage with it somehow by looking down at some games, that counts as a booth visit. But if they're just kind of walking by, we don't count it. If we say hi to them, I count that as a booth visit, as long as they say hi back. If I say hi, which I don't know if it happens that often, but every once in a while I'll say hi, maybe they don't hear me, they just walk by. We don't count that. If they come to our booth, pick up a game, anything along those lines counts as a booth visit. So we had added some extra data points from the previous video, the percentage of unique passersby to booth visits. So out of 51, 22 visited our booth, so that's about 43% and 44%. And then next up, we have transactions, which leads to our percentage or our conversion. And what I want to say about this event, it's really, really awesome, really close, tight-knit experience for the booth and the event, which was really great to get to know some of the people in the community. Really cool to know people by their names. Really cool that I was able to kind of get to know this boy a little bit more, and I know his favorite Pokemon now, so it's really cool that we start to learn these things about our community and be able to serve them better in the future. So out of the conversion, we had 11 items sold, so then we can look at how did we do? Did we profit? Do we lose from that event? So one thing, maybe before I go into showing the profit or talking about the profit and loss, definitely, even if we are losing money, I would say that these are definitely a positive experience. Again, going back to the ability to meet people in the community, to network, to share our passion of tabletop games and the positive benefits of those. Really worth it. Really cool to also talk to people who are not familiar with all these modern board games. So really cool to share with them, oh, look at this booth that has like 100 different board games. I didn't even know there were that many. So really cool to be able to share that with people in the community as well. So the first day on Saturday, we had 104 in gross sales. You can see on Sunday, our gross sales were a lot higher, but our transactions were about the same. And this just comes down to larger transactions. And I know on one of those days we were able to help someone pick out some gifts for Christmas and for birthdays coming up. So that was really cool to walk them through choosing games that would make really great gifts. And then we'll look at the cost of goods. So this is calculated roughly as 60% of our gross sales. So I do that. We're not really minute with the data here. I do my books twice a month, so that's where I really drill into very specific, very accurate data, but I just round off here. And then next up is our vendor fees. So this weekend it was $25 for both days, and then they did something really cool where it's $5 each day. The vendors added $5 to a pot to buy a gift card in a local business in the area, and like on the street that we're doing the pop-up. So what if you came to the pop-up and you purchased something, you would get a raffle and you would enter your name into the raffle, and then at the end of the event they would draw the raffle and you would receive a gift card to a local business. There are a couple restaurants in the area, barbershops, so really cool way to support the businesses too. And again, just to reiterate, really awesome community that really out there to support local businesses, which has been really great to be able to be a part of this like business community as well, and the cafe community. So very successful. I think we would do this as often as we can. Obviously, I mean, when it comes to sales, some days are better than others, but I don't think that's necessarily the main priority with this. So the next pop-up was the following weekend, and this was called a night market. So, and I'll talk more about what that means and how that affected, I think, that day. But we had 218 people. So you walk into the night market and then it's a loop. So that means that 218 people walked past our booth. We were on the far end, so you'd have to walk through all the way around and you would pass by us. So there could have been more than 218 total people at the event. We had 170 people visit our booth, so that's about half the people that walked by came to our booth. And this is what really, really hurts. We had 4 total transactions, which is about 4% of a conversion. That's very low, and I'll talk more to why I think that happened. We sold 5 items. Our gross sales 88, cost of goods 53, vendor fee 70, which brings us to a loss of $39, a little over $39. So again, not not the best experience, but is definitely, I think, great to get out there and to share our mission. We were able to network a little bit. I talked to a woman on a PTA board, and hopefully I'll be able to have a chance to chat with their school and talk about, or chat with other parents at that school and talk about the benefits of tabletop games. So definitely worth it on that end. But on the end of actually being profitable, we did not profit that day. And I think, so a couple different things. So I know for sure this affected our conversions. We were next to the DJ and the band, like right next to it. The music was way too loud. We had some kids come over to a booth and cover their ears like that. It's not good for visiting our booth, especially when we are a product or merchandise where we have to be able to engage with the customer. We have to be able to explain to them what the game is, how to play the game, why it's good for whether their family, their game group. It's not a booth where you don't really need to know more about the merchandise to be able to make a purchase. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're maybe particularly looking into some of these events. Does loud music, which probably I would say most of the time no, help you in your experience at a event like this? Does it complement your product? More than likely not, but you can just check with them. Say, like, what kind of music, where are the booths in relation to the music, how loud is the music going to be? So these are things kind of to keep an eye out for, to ask. It is a double-edged sword, because if you request to be put away from the music, to accommodate your request, you might be put all the way in the outskirts, and you might have an area with less foot traffic because they're worried about putting you maybe halfway through, which maybe would have been fine, and you would be halfway distance to the music, and that would have been okay. But you had to ask to be away from music. So, well, now they got to put you even further away, and you're not really sure until you've gone to one of the events first, and then you can kind of gauge that way. So just ask some questions up front about that if that's a concern. Another thing, this is more of a hunch than it is actual, I think something that I know was real, is it was called a night market. I know in my experience going to night markets in Taipei and Taiwan, It's not a shopping experience, at least for me and for a lot of people, I think. It's something where you go, you window shop, you get a treat, you get some food, you walk around, you eat, and you're not expecting necessarily to spend money. And maybe that's just our particular product for this night market. I'd have to talk to other vendors and see how they did as well. I did talk to one other vendor who was a game store, a video game store, and they're a buy, sell, trade. So they sold and bought and traded video games. He said they did really well. Now, I don't know what really well means for him. But I know for us, we definitely did not do well in that sense of a profitable day. So in the future, we might just ask to choose a particular spot if it's going to be in the same location with this particular event. So those are some data points for the last couple. Next video, we'll go over the 818 day, which is, again, it was at that cafe, and then we'll talk about 828, which is at a local mall. So we'll talk about our experiences there. But before we end, I want to go over some things I've been learning from the pop-up. So I'm going to hide myself here. This is in a Facebook group, opening a tabletop game store on Facebook, and someone had asked if there are any ways to project sales, any other data out there, because they want to ask investors to help with opening their store. So this is something we've kind of looked into, and definitely not something that we'll seek out as far as investors, but we'll potentially ask friends or family to help support us as we get off the ground. And so this is one thing that we've decided to do, is just do pop-ups, because one, it's very tangible, it's very practical. We can really see how running a tabletop game store works kind of in person versus online. And these are some things that I've learned in my experience. Number one is low overhead, or I guess this is more an obvious thing, but I was kind of suggesting why you might try to do this. The events that we have they have little to no fees. As you can see, I shared some of the fees for these events with you. The highest one that we'll pay is $150, and that's because it's at the local mall, and we're expecting about 10,000 attendees. So, well, 5,000 are registered. They are expecting 10,000, but actually we'll completely see, because we're not really sure. And then number two, and this has been like really probably one of the best things that I've been able to learn from doing this, is testing various product lines. We started carrying Pokemon about the same time that we hosted our first pop-up, and wow, they were super successful. The second pop-up, they were even more successful, and actually, if we didn't have Pokemon products at our second pop-up, we would have sold, I think, like $40 in sales. Everything else was Pokemon. So we're like, all right, we have to carry Pokemon because it's very popular in the area, very popular in the community. I think right now it's popular everywhere. Something else we've learned about Haba products, and this has been really interesting, at least in my experience. I have not seen a lot of Haba products in local big box stores. And I think we have a unique position, at least for now, with that. And we can help parents find the right Haba products for their kids. Some parents are very familiar with the product line because of their schools or daycares. They've seen it in their kids' schools or daycares. And number three, we get real data and better sales projections. So I shared with you the third pop-up, and we'll go back over there. You can see that right here, we did 171 in profit and 441 in gross sales. This is about what we need to do to support a local, or to support a brick-and-mortar store. We looked at this data and saw how much we're making per hour and how much it would cost to run a tabletop game store per hour and per day. And finally, we're marketing and getting to know our community. Well, I guess number four, not finally, we're marketing and getting to know our community. We've already met some awesome people. I shared some stories about that already. And then number five, we learn what areas work well. So I talked about the night market. Could it be the area that's just not open for tabletop games? It could be. We'd have to choose either a different event. We'd have to do that event again, maybe. So trying out the area in a particular spot to learn more about the market there. So what we will start to do when we get more closer to opening our brick and mortar store and know where we intend to open, we'll try to host events in that particular area and make sure that we're doing well in that area. We're getting to know our community as well. So those are just a few things that I'm learning so far. So those are some tips and insights that I've learned in some data from a couple different pop-ups. We'll be back to talk about 2 more in our next video, but ring the bell, subscribe, leave a comment. All these things really help us out, especially as a new YouTube channel. Helps the algorithm out, helps us get found by others interested in doing this as well. And if you are interested, sign up for our newsletter. We'll leave it below, and we'll see you next time.